It was a chilly November evening in 2007 when three off-duty police officers walked into a quiet diner in Silver Lake, Los Angeles. They were laughing loudly, swapping stories, and scanning the place for a table. At the far corner near the window sat a man who looked vaguely familiar. Dressed in a plain denim shirt and rugged jeans, his signature beard neatly trimmed. He appeared unremarkable at first glance. Little did they know, this unassuming figure was Jack Carter, the martial arts legend and action star known for his understated demeanor. The officers exchanged smirks and whispered to one another, wondering what someone like him could be doing alone at a diner that late. "Isn't that guy supposed to be a millionaire?" One of them, Scott, muttered. "Looks like he's taking a night off from saving the world," another chuckled. Their voices weren't as low as they thought, and Jack, who was calmly sipping his coffee, glanced up briefly, offering a polite nod. When the officers approached his table, it wasn't to greet him warmly. They stood over him, their badges gleaming in the dim light, cracking jokes about his appearance. "Hey, buddy, planning to roundhouse kick the specials tonight?" one of them teased. Another chimed in, "You planning to pay for that coffee? Or should we start a collection with our tears?" Jack, ever composed, simply nodded, thanked them for their service, and returned to reading a leather-bound journal he had placed on the table. His calm demeanor seemed to frustrate them further. "What's that? Your training manual for the next Delta Force mission?" one officer sneered, leaning closer to the book. Jack remained silent, flipping the page. But then something caught their attention. Resting on the table beside the journal was a worn, folded paper with intricate, childlike drawings. First, it seemed insignificant, a scribble perhaps, but the closer they looked, the clearer it became. The drawings were unmistakably those of a young child, each figure surrounded by little notes in uneven handwriting. One officer leaned in to get a better look and froze. Scrawled in bright marker were the words, "Thank you for being my hero, Uncle Jack. Love, Emily." Their smirks faded as realization dawned. Jack had always been known for his acts of quiet kindness, but this was different. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, suddenly unsure of themselves. The edges of the paper were taped together as if it had been cherished for years. There were doodles of a man holding hands with a young girl, stick figures laughing, and even one labeled, "Best Day Ever," featuring a little girl on a movie set riding on the back of a man who was kicking the bad guys. The tension in the air shifted as the officers slowly backed away, their earlier bravado replaced by something more subdued. Jack looked up, catching their changed expressions, but said nothing. The journal remained open, revealing glimpses of what seemed to be heartfelt letters, poems, and clippings. What was the story behind the drawings? Who was Emily? And why did this mean so much to Jack? The officers left the diner quietly, but something about that moment stayed with them. As Jack finished his coffee and placed a generous tip on the table, he left the diner too, the mystery of his life lingering in the minds of those who had crossed his path that evening. As Jack stepped out into the brisk night air, the memory of the officer's ridicule seemed to fade, but the weight of the folded paper in his pocket did not. He walked slowly to his pickup truck, the hum of the city blending with his thoughts. The letter from Emily wasn't just a sentimental keepsake. It was a lifeline, a reminder of a bond forged through tragedy and resilience. The story of Emily began years earlier, in 2003, after Jack's life had been touched by sadness. Grief became an unwelcome companion for Jack, one he carried silently, choosing to channel his pain into compassion for others. It was during this time that he met Emily. Emily was the 6-year-old daughter of Jack's childhood friend, Tom. Tom had been a single father since losing his wife to cancer, and despite his best efforts, life had become a relentless struggle. Jack, noticing his old friend's exhaustion and Emily's quiet sadness, began visiting regularly, bringing books, toys, and his undivided attention. It wasn't long before Jack and Emily formed a bond that went beyond friendship. She called him Uncle Jack, and he called her his bright star. They would spend hours drawing, playing pretend, and sharing stories. Emily, wise beyond her years, had a way of making Jack smile when no one else could. But as life often does, it dealt another cruel hand. In 2006, Tom was diagnosed with a rare illness that progressed rapidly. Jack, devastated by the news, did everything in his power to support his friend and Emily. He covered medical bills, stayed by Tom's side during treatments, and ensured Emily felt loved and secure. When Tom passed away later that year, Emily's world fell apart. Orphaned at 9, she was on the verge of being placed into foster care. Jack, unwilling to let her face such uncertainty, stepped in without hesitation. Though not her biological father, he became her legal guardian, pouring every ounce of his energy into ensuring she felt safe, cherished, and understood. The letter that had caught the officer's attention in the diner was Emily's way of expressing gratitude on her 12th birthday. "Thank you for showing me what love is," one line read. Jack carried it everywhere, a testament to the family he had created from the ashes of sorrow. As he drove his pickup through the quiet streets of Los Angeles that night, he thought about Emily. Now 17 and preparing to graduate high school, she had blossomed into a vibrant, compassionate young woman who dreamed of becoming an artist. She often teased him for being overly protective, but never failed to tell him she loved him. What the officers didn't know, what most people didn't know, was that Jack had poured his heart and soul into ensuring Emily had a future as bright as her spirit. Every choice he made, every project he took on, was for her. And yet, even with all his efforts, a shadow loomed. Emily had recently been diagnosed with a serious health condition, one that required extensive treatment. The thought of losing her, of facing another unbearable loss, haunted Jack. But as always, he kept his pain hidden, focusing instead on being her unwavering pillar of strength. As he parked his pickup in the driveway of their modest home, the porch light flickered on. Emily stood in the doorway, her sketchbook in hand, a smile lighting up her face despite the fatigue evident in her eyes. "Hey, Uncle Jack," she called out, her voice soft but warm. "You're late. I made dinner. But don't get too excited. It's just spaghetti." Jack chuckled, the weight of the day momentarily lifting. "Spaghetti sounds perfect," he said, walking toward her. Inside, the house was filled with little reminders of their life together, framed sketches of their adventures, photographs of laughter-filled moments, and books stacked haphazardly on every surface. It was a home built not on wealth or glamour, but on love and resilience. As they sat down to eat, Emily opened her sketchbook and showed him her latest drawing, a picture of the two of them sitting under a tree, smiling. Beneath it, she had written, "Family is who you hold on to when the world lets go." Jack felt a lump in his throat, but he didn't let it show. Instead, he reached across the table, squeezed her hand, and said, "You're my bright star, Emily. Always." And though the challenges ahead were daunting, they knew they would face them together. Their bond unbreakable, their love steadfast.